Hello, and welcome back to the channel, or welcome to the channel if you're new. This is Ashes to Indigo. We do a lot of fun things here on this channel, and today we are going to be doing another ghost art piece. So go ahead and grab a drink or any other thing that makes you feel relaxed and cozy, and let's get our spooky on for this art project today. When I found the sketch of a ghost that I was most happy with, I went and I got a sheet of tracing paper, and I initially traced it with a soft lead pencil. But when I realized I wanted to use a black canvas as the background, I went over those lines with a white charcoal pencil. Then I attached the tracing paper to the canvas with a piece of tape, and I began to use pressure over those lines to transfer the white charcoal over to the black canvas so I could begin the next phase of this ghost art project. I wasn't quite happy with what the transfer technique had left on the blank canvas, so I went ahead and I got my white charcoal pencil out. I also used the trace of the sketch as a guide for where I wanted to place the more important lines that I would need to guide in determining where I would want the highlights and the shadows, the folds in the fabric, to determine also how I wanted the texture to appear in this next phase that I will show you. But as you can see here, I'm just refining how I want the arms to look, the shadows, the highlights. That's about it. And in a moment here, we'll get on to the mixed media and texture part of this project. Looking back, I probably didn't need to be as detailed as I was here with the white charcoal pencil, but I did appreciate the fact that it gave me a very precise guide where to apply the texture, which you'll be seeing here in just a moment. The materials I will be using for this next part are just the vinyl spackle. I got some piping bags and some different little attachments that are different diameters, widths, and patterns. As you can see, I chose just the very basic, the smallest setting, the smallest diameter, I guess you could say, on the little piping attachment. I filled the piping bag full of spackle. I probably filled it a little too full, but it's better to have more than not enough. The brushes you see me using are from a really cheap craft brush set that you can get either on Amazon or from Michaels. I think the whole set of, I don't even know, there's like 20 different brushes, cost less than $8. I used a small angled flat brush and then this very basic round brush that is nothing special at all. In fact, I even think that the end of the brush served me better than the actual brush part. I highly suggest that you use extremely inexpensive brushes, otherwise you could potentially ruin them with the spackle hardening and drying in the bristles. But here I am, just applying the spackle, and it does dry rather quickly. Then I use the brush to sort of smooth out the edges and kind of define where the texture is going to be. I'm kind of manipulating certain parts of it with the flat brush once it's already kind of dried a little bit, to push it around into the place where I want it. And eventually I discovered throughout this process that as you lay down the spackle, you didn't really even need all those lines in the beginning to determine where you want the shadows and the folds, because the spackle kind of does that for you. I do kind of redefine the shape of the eyes, and I add a little more detail to the end, and as you can see later, do the sides as well to kind of really make it look like the ghost is jumping off the canvas, kind of trailing its sheets behind it. And I really think this effect worked rather well, actually better than I expected it to. The next phase is painting the background. In order to keep the ghost safe, I went ahead and I taped over it with some artist's tape. The tools I'll be using are 6 different mop brushes, Liquitex acrylic paint, a spray bottle to spray the canvas to keep the acrylic paint from drying too quickly, and a cloth paper towel to wipe off the excess paint from my dry blending brushes. To create the background, I will be using 3 colors of paint, one of which I mixed before I began filming, which is a dark teal. The other 2 are just white and black paint to help with the gradient and this misty fog-like effect that I'm trying to create. The technique that I'm trying to emulate is from one of my new favorite artists, Laura S. Beating. You can find her at Laura S. Beating Art on YouTube. She has blending tutorials, one of which is describing what I'm trying to do here that I'm not executing as well as I would like. The things I managed to do well was to keep 1 brush for each color without getting them mixed up, and then I reserved 3 of those 6 brushes to remain dry to use for blending. I put the white down first to determine where I wanted my horizon line to be. I applied black paint at the bottom and top of the canvas, and then from the white horizon line, I used the dark teal color I had mixed up to blend upward towards the black, out of the white, and then downwards out of the white towards the black. I laid each color on the canvas with their respective brushes, and then I would switch to a dry brush to commence the blending. Then wiping the dry brush off when it became too full of paint, then putting that down if I needed to apply more of either of the 3 colors, then switching back to the dry brush, so on and so forth, until I got the effect that I liked. Acrylic paint does dry very fast, no matter how many spritzes of water you might want to apply. One thing I learned for next time is to have many more dry brushes at my disposal to make blending that much easier. If I haven't mentioned this already, I'd just like to say thank you so much for all of your support and spending some of your time with me today. Please consider hitting that like button and subscribing to my channel. The paint should be dry now. I just tapped my canvas a few times to make sure that it was before removing the tape. And as you can see, there are some areas that need a little bit of touching up around the outline of the ghost. One very valuable tip from Laura's blending tutorial was to make sure that you mix enough of your primary color that you'll be using. For me, it was the teal, because going back to remix the same color to make it look exactly the same is nearly impossible. I was lucky that I followed this advice because it made doing these touch-ups much easier than it would have otherwise been if I had to go back and remix that same color again. I've now switched from my mop brushes to more narrow, fine, bristled brushes so I can really get in between the crevices to fill in that black gap that's the outline around the ghost that was left from peeling off the artist's tape. My blending technique has also changed a bit here. I'm no longer keeping one brush per color. I'm using the same brush, but one thing I am keeping the same is when I'm doing the blending, I'm using a dry brush. And it's working out okay. I continue applying the paint around the ghost where the tape had left little black spaces, and I'm blending out with the dry brush, trying to create this aura effect around the ghost. After that paint had dried, I then went in with a round brush and white paint to touch up where some blue paint had gotten on to the ghost, and also to just kind of give some more depth to the texture. And I feel that that's working out just fine. You could also mix up another batch of spackle and reapply the spackle, but I chose to go with just using some white paint, and I'm just as happy with that. The painting could absolutely be finished at this stage, but I really had some interesting ideas for some mixed media background, and I'm looking for your opinion to find out what you think this painting might need to be complete. Let me know in the comments below. Like and subscribe. And I'll see you in the next one.